At 15, I started hiding a smartphone inside the barn. Not because I wanted to rebel. Not at first. It started with curiosity, the kind that grows in silence, the kind that has nowhere to go. In our world, the days were always the same. Wake up before sunrise, feed the animals, help mama in the kitchen, sew, clean, pray, smile when spoken to, lower your eyes, never ask for more than what God already gave you. And for most of my life, that was enough, or at least I told myself it was. Then one autumn evening, my cousin Ruth came to visit from another district. She was only there for one night, but I could tell something had changed in her. She moved like she knew a secret. She smiled at nothing. And when she thought nobody was watching, she touched the pocket of her apron like she was checking on something precious. Later that night, when everyone was asleep, she showed me a phone, small, black, cracked in one corner, hidden inside a cloth bag beneath her clothes. I remember how my heart started beating so hard I thought the whole house would wake up. I had heard about English phones before, sinful little windows, distractions, temptation, pride, vanity, but hearing about a thing and holding it in your hand are two different worlds. The screen lit up my face in the dark, and for the first time in my life, it felt like the night was looking back at me. Ruth laughed when she saw my expression. She said, "Go on, touch it." I did. That one touch changed everything. A week later, I found my own. Not in a store, not bought with money. It was left behind by a young English tourist near the roadside produce stand where my father sold pies and canned peaches. Old model, no case, half-dead battery. The screen had scratches. To anyone else, it was trash. To me, it felt like fate. I didn't tell anyone. I wrapped it in an old feed sack and hid it in the barn, deep behind a loose plank near the hay bales. Every night after supper, after prayers, after the lamps went out and the house settled into its familiar breathing, I would wait. I would count to 100, then 200. Then I would slip from bed, pull on my boots, and walk through the cold to the barn. That became my real life. At first, I only watched harmless things, videos of cities at night, girls doing makeup in bright bedrooms, couples dancing in kitchens, dogs wearing sweaters, kitchens with shining silver machines, music that sounded too bold, too alive, too free. Everything looked impossible. Everyone looked like they belonged to themselves. And that fascinated me. Because in my world, belonging to yourself was not considered a virtue. Night after night, I watched more. Soon I discovered the endless scroll. And that was when the trouble began. Because the phone learned me faster than I understood myself. It showed me things I never asked for but couldn't look away from. Strangers crying into cameras. Women exposing secrets they would never say out loud in church. Men bragging about money, cars, bodies, power, gossip, fights, confessions, scandals. Late-night live streams full of chaos and glitter and loneliness dressed up as freedom. Some of it disgusted me, some of it thrilled me, and that was the part one hated. The more I watched, the harder it became to stop. The screen made everything feel urgent. Everyone out there seemed to be feeling everything all at once. Desire, anger, attention, envy, pleasure, regret. I had spent my whole life learning to quiet my thoughts, and suddenly the internet was teaching me to feed every one of them. I started staying longer in the barn. 10 minutes became 30. 30 became an hour. Then 2. I told myself I could stop whenever I wanted. That was the first lie. The second lie was worse. I started talking to people. At first, only in comments, then through fake accounts. I didn't use my real name. I picked one that sounded modern and careless, the kind of girl who wouldn't blush when someone looked directly at her. And people answered me. Fast. Men, women, strangers from states I had never seen on a map. They told me I sounded interesting, funny, different, mysterious. No one in my real life had ever called me mysterious. In my real life, I was obedient, useful, quiet, predictable. On the phone, I became someone people wanted to keep talking to. That feeling is dangerous. When you've spent your whole life being noticed only when chores are done correctly, even a little attention can feel like sunlight after winter. So I kept going back. Every night, the barn became my confession booth and my hiding place. I sat on an overturned bucket beneath the rafters, the phone glowing in my hands, while the horses shifted in their stalls and the wind pressed against the wood outside. Some nights I laughed so hard I had to cover my mouth. Some nights I cried because I realized how small my world had been. Some nights I stared at people living reckless, flashy, noisy lives and felt sorry for them. And some nights, if I'm being honest, I envied them so much it made me feel sick. Because they could choose. That was the word that haunted me. Choose. What to wear, what to say, who to love, where to go, what to dream about, who to become. The phone didn't just show me the world, it showed me the possibility of wanting a different one. And once that thought enters your mind, it doesn't leave politely. It starts rearranging the furniture. Soon I change too. Mama noticed first. She asked why I looked tired, why I moved slow in the mornings, why I forgot simple tasks, why I dropped a bowl, burned the bread, stitched a sleeve crooked, stared too long out the window. My younger brother said I had become jumpy. My father asked if I was unwell. I said I was fine. Another lie. The truth was, I was living in two worlds now, and both of them were making demands. During the day, I milked cows with dirt on my hands and scripture in my ears. At night, I disappeared into a universe designed to keep me wanting more. More noise, more secrets, more faces, more shock, more validation, more life than I knew what to do with. And then one night, the algorithm took a darker turn. It started showing me stories about girls who ran, girls from strict homes, girls from religious families, girls who vanished before dawn and never came back. Some told their stories with tears, some with pride, some looked broken, some looked relieved, most looked both. I watched every single one. That should have scared me enough to stop. Instead, it made me wonder what my own story would sound like if I ever told it to a camera. Would people pity me? Would they judge me? Would they cheer? Or would I disappear into the internet like everybody else, one more face confessing into the glow? Around that time, I began talking regularly to one person online. He said he was 23, said he had grown up strict too, said he understood what it was like to feel trapped inside expectations that were chosen for you before you were old enough to speak. He never pushed too hard at first. That is how people gain your trust. They don't kick the door open. They knock softly until you open it yourself. He asked what I wanted. No one had ever asked me that so directly before. So I answered. I said I wanted to know who I would be if no one was watching. After that, I couldn't unread my own words. The secret began to rot everything. Worship felt hollow because I was thinking about notifications. Family meals felt smaller because I knew how big the world looked through 6 inches of glass. Even the barn changed. What had once felt safe now felt haunted. Every creak made me flinch. Every lantern shadow looked like judgment. I began deleting messages, clearing history, wrapping the phone tighter, hiding it deeper. But guilt has a smell. It follows you. One freezing night in January, I ran to the barn later than usual. Snow was falling so thick it made the whole farm look buried alive. I reached behind the loose plank. The phone was gone. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. I tore through the hay, checked the sacks, the corners, the feed bins, the rafters. Nothing. My hands went numb. My knees hit the dirt floor. I remember whispering no over and over like the word itself might reverse time. Then I heard movement behind me. My father. He didn't yell. That was the worst part. He just stood there in the doorway, shoulders covered in snow, one hand holding the lantern, the other holding the phone. Its screen was lit. He had seen enough. I wish I could tell you there was a dramatic speech, that I defended myself, that I shouted about freedom and choice and being suffocated by rules older than memory. But real shame doesn't sound dramatic. It sounds small. I cried before he said a word. He asked only one question. How long? And somehow that was more painful than if he had called me sinful or ungrateful or lost. Because how do you explain that what started as curiosity became hunger, that the hunger became habit, that the habit became a second self, that every night inside that barn, I was feeding a part of me I had never been taught to name. I told him everything. Not every detail, not every message, not every video, but enough. He listened in silence. Then he did something I still think about. He put the phone on a crate between us and said, "This thing did not create the emptiness. It only found it." I have never forgotten that. People think temptation arrives like thunder, loud, obvious, evil. Sometimes it arrives like light, soft, personal, promising. Sometimes it arrives as a mirror, showing you not just what the world is, but what you've been missing. And if there's already loneliness inside you, if there's already curiosity, already restlessness, already a quiet ache you don't know how to confess, then that mirror becomes almost impossible to resist. I didn't run away. Maybe part of me wanted to. Maybe part of me still wonders. But that winter, my secret life ended in the barn where it had begun. And yet, if I'm telling the full truth, the phone did not leave empty-handed. It took something with it. My innocence, maybe. My certainty, definitely. Because once you've seen the world beyond the fence, you can never honestly pretend the fence is the whole world. Even now, years later, I still remember that first glow in the dark, the shock of being seen by a machine, the thrill of secrecy, the poison of attention. The way one hidden object in a barn can become a doorway, then a habit, then a lie, then a hunger, then a crack running straight through the middle of a life. So if you ask me whether it was really just a phone, I'll tell you no. It was a confession before I had the courage to speak one. It was a temptation before I knew my weaknesses. It was a tiny lit screen in the middle of a silent barn. and for a while it knew me better than anyone else.